Chapter. afternoon and welcome. This is the 933 KFM debate on economy. My name is Dr. Rami Michigwang and we're coming to you live from the Sheraton. This afternoon, you might have questions. You might be wondering what's happening to the economy. Well, we've got good news. We've got answers for you. In proud partnership with the court and KCB Bank, this afternoon we've got 4 panelists gentlemen who are going to be answering every single question we think about. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure. I'd like to introduce Dr. Fred Muhumuza, Francis Kamdegea, Mr. Charles Ochichi, and ladies and gentlemen, a man who needs no introduction, Professor Augustus Nwagaba. Ladies and gentlemen, during the course of this afternoon, we're going to give them a chance to answer one question. But you can engage us live. You can go to Facebook.com/933KFM, post your questions there, or better yet, you can come on down here to the Sheraton and drop your question off. But the first question goes to Dr. Fred Muhumuza. Does Uganda have the right infrastructure to propel business competitiveness in the region?
Thank you, Dr. Mitch, and good evening, our viewers and listeners. The answer is no. And we can even end it at that, but let's see what to do next. If you do not have enough infrastructure to do competitiveness, the solution lies in doing massive investments to get that infrastructure in place. But I want to go beyond the common discussion on infrastructure, which is the physical infrastructure, and go to the other macroeconomic aspects of this. I have 5 minutes and I will be able to manage. I know we have about a program to invest or to tarmac about 3,000 kilometers of roads over the next 10 years. That is in addition to routine maintenance of national roads, about 10,000 kilometers, 30,000 kilometers of district, urban and community roads. We have additional investments for energy, additional investments for transmission of power and distribution, all totaling to about $18 billion. Now, when you add on that the social costs required in health, in education, public administration, then you really have a huge investment to do. But as I've already said, if you are so much in a deficit, it's like finding a malnourished person and you serve them a buffet. You will still kill them. So we must find a strategy. We shouldn't rush to say, let's finish up the infrastructure deficit, which has been built over years, so we can finish it in a very short time, because that kills the other aspects of the macroeconomics. So we need to be concerned about how much money government is putting into the economy. It should not be at the expense of the very private sector that is supposed to actually use that infrastructure to develop. Let it be said that economic growth is an issue of the private sector, definitely. Government only facilitates that process. So if we do not put measures in place to support the private sector, then we will not have, even after putting the roads and energy in place, have provided adequate infrastructure to provide competitiveness in the region and beyond. And as you know, last year we had to raise treasury bill rates, interest rates, to try and contain inflation. Inflation in Uganda, and there are debates about what are the causes. Some people will think it's too much money in the economy, yes and no. But it's also a constrained supply of the private sector. Now, high interest rates will at the end of the day go against the very private sector that is supposed to resolve that problem. And that's why I was saying, if you put too many billions into the economy, you actually may choke the person that you have found that is malnourished. So we've got to find that tricky balance. Unfortunately, these required solutions, Uganda and globally, we do not have to seem to have kind of concurrence on the parameters to use, on the definitions to use, on what is to be done. There seems to be indecisiveness in how exactly to approach these challenges that are not just for Uganda, but globally. Everybody wants to be funded, education, health, and every other person. But as I've said, the bottom line is if you do suffocate the private sector, you're not going to generate adequate growth in the economy by only favoring the public sector. Uganda's growth has declined to 3.2, as everybody knows. That is just a business fluctuation. business cycle. The long-term growth trend is about 6% if you take 20 years, which for me is actually the growth trend that one should be looking at. So you want to build an infrastructure that gives you growth above 10%, because 6 is already inadequate. With our population growth of 3.2, if you take on depreciation, the tax people will tell you, then you have finished whatever growth you had. So you're only marking time. If Uganda is to make progress, we need above 10%. Anything less than that is not impressive. And I don't want impression to be related to what my neighbor is doing. I'm running my own race as a country. Japan, even if they have zero growth, they make progress because their population growth is minus. So for Uganda at 3.2, you need to grow much faster, and you definitely need the private sector investments. If you put too much money in the bid to resolve the infrastructure constraints, the physical infrastructure constraints, you are forced to raise interest rates. You choke out the private sector, which should have actually responded and given you the supply. But also you impose another cost on government of meeting the interest rates on treasury bills and the bonds. So you are kind of complicating a very precarious situation that needs to be well balanced out and well managed. You also choke the private sector. And let me say, I mean the consumption. And let me say that interest rate increases deals with private sector credit. So at that point, you're only dealing with the demand related with the private sector. The injection of public funds can only be cleaned out by issuing of treasury bills effectively, which adds another layer of a cost. So what we are seeing today requires, as I conclude, a lot of rethinking of ideology. What is our development ideology? And everyone needs to get involved here. It's not finger pointing to say government here and government there. We are the ones who have asked for all these favors today. We are putting too much pressure on government, but more so on the economy. The economy must provide us with free health, free education, roads yesterday, energy today, security, public administration. This is too much load on the economy, and we need to agree on what is the ideology that will give us that private sector growth, that will give us that infrastructure across all the board in terms of roads, in terms of rail, in terms of energy, but more so in terms of access to affordable credit, not just for the short term, but also for the long term, in terms of ICT infrastructure, in terms of the brains that we need, the educational training. All these need to be looked at when you're talking about infrastructure that is going to give us competitiveness. Thank you.
Dr. Fred Muhumuza, Senior Research Fellow. He lectures at Makerere University at the Center for Economic Policy and Research. We'd like to thank you very much. He has contributions every single year to our budget. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you've just tuned in, it's live on NTV. It's the 933 KFM Economic Debate. And it's proudly sponsored by Accord and KCB Bank. Ladies and gentlemen, we've just heard from Dr. Fred, but right now it's with great pleasure I'd like to introduce Mr. Francis Kamleger. He's a country senior partner of PwC, and he's an authority when it comes to taxes. The question we asked to him, Uganda's tax regime, does it encourage compliance and support equitable service delivery? Discuss.
Thank you, Mitch. Good afternoon, our viewers. That's a two-pronged question. Uganda's tax regime, does it encourage compliance? The answer is yes. Now, do we have voluntary compliance? The answer is no. Now, I'll explain. The nature of Uganda's tax system is one which, when you look at the global benchmark and best practice, the system actually conforms to what is widely acknowledged as the basic principles of a good tax system. It is a simple system, and to appreciate how simple it is, you need to look at the USA, you look at the UK and the various tax codes that one has to comply with. Secondly, it is fair and equitable. It is designed in such a way that people who earn the same level of income pay the same level of taxation, and both horizontally and vertically. Horizontally in the sense that if I earn the same amount of money as Dr. Muhumuza here, the tax law is designed to tax us at the same rate. On the other hand, if Professor Nwagaba, who earns more than I do, the tax law is designed in such a way that he pays more. on the basis of the graduated scale. It is a system, in terms of its implementation, we have what we call in Uganda a self-assessment. In other countries, you are supposed to prepare accounts and then the revenue authority will come and look at them and then decide how much you're going to pay. In the case of Uganda, there is a position, a default position of trust. You know, you tell us how much you earned, and this is what the law says, compute how much is payable, and you don't even need to go there anymore these days. You sit in your office on the electronic tax register, you know, register your tax, pay 30% of whatever you've earned, and the story ends there. Of course, the law is designed in such a way that the tax authorities can come back to you in case they feel what you've declared is not what actually you've earned. So that is on the policy side, the way the system is designed. Now, on the issue of compliance, I think in my long years of tax practice in Uganda here, we have about 3 reasons that I've noticed. People are not compliant because of perceptions that they have with the tax system. At times there is a perception that the system is not fair, and people who should be paying tax are not paying tax, and those who are paying tax, they are the very same people who pay tax every other day. That is not the way the system is designed. That is because there is a culture, a very endemic culture of lack of compliance. On the other hand, people are asking the government, before I pay my tax, can you account for whatever was paid last year? And that, I think, is a very fair question. The only problem with taxation is that you are obliged to pay the tax. Whether the government delivers the service or not, I'm afraid that's a different issue altogether. The law requires you to pay tax. And there's no way you can protest that I'm not going to pay my taxes because the road in front of my house is not being repaired, or because my children cannot access medical services or free education. Having said that, it's important to acknowledge that the tax culture in Uganda is bad, and that is reflected by the low tax to GDP ratio. And I need to explain that again very briefly. GDP, you know, you'll hear that figure, and I think I'll leave that to Professor to elaborate what it is. But when you look at Uganda's GDP, Uganda's tax ratio to GDP at 13%, that is very, very low by world standards, and most importantly, it's so low compared to some of the countries that we know we are better than and we are richer than. Zambia's GDP, tax to GDP ratio is about 20. Kenya, we know, is 22 up to 24. Rwanda is closely closing in on us. From 5% about 10 years ago, they are around 12%. Uganda has been stuck at 12 to 13% for 10 years. Zambia, Ghana, you know, all those are countries that are in the same peer group as Uganda. So the question is, how can we be having this year-on-year economic growth? Even the 3.2% growth is still growth. How can we be having that annual economic growth and we're not having incremental growth in tax revenue? The answer is there are just so many people who are not paying tax in Uganda. Now, how do you get them to pay those taxes? In my view, the Revenue Authority has done a very good job. When you look at the tax revenue to the total government expenditure, about 10 years ago, I think the revenue collections were funding just about 50% of the budget. This financial year, I think it's about 67%. The next year, from the projections I've seen, is going to be close to 70%. Now, all that increment has not come from increase in tax rates. It has come from more vigilance and improvements in tax administration. I submit that there is a limit to how much increases in tax administration will improve tax collection. Now, when we all sit back here and we demand services, public goods, the government is responsible for providing these goods. But I think we need to have a very, very sober debate. How does government fund public expenditure? There are 3 sources. It's tax revenue, begging, as in donations from donors, and borrowing. Now let me tell you something which I think most of you already know. Where we've been getting free money, these are the donors, this is the grants, these are the concession loans, they are in trouble back in their home countries. 60% of Uganda's aid comes from the EU. Now you tell me whether those countries are likely to send us as much money as they've been doing in the past when they have their own issues back home. Now, once that aid goes away, we are left with the borrowing. We've heard from Dr. Mhumuza here what borrowing does to the economy and how it crowds out private sector. The truth is we have to pay taxes. And those who are not paying taxes, when the Revenue Authority comes up with all sorts of ingenious ways to try and encourage you to pay your taxes, my appeal is simply comply. Because failure to comply means we don't have any taxes to fund the public expenditure. And just one final note, and this is maybe a bit controversial, but I believe that the people who have the power to unlock the tax base are the politicians and, Dr. Zach, forgive me, religious leaders. I'll tell you why. The kind of following that these individuals have and the belief people have in them, I can assure you that if a leader, a political leader, any one of our MPs here in the country who have such a huge following, if they stood side by side with the Commissioner General and they encourage people to come and register for taxation, chances are that they will have that big pulling power, because the moment they fail to interface with the electorate and explain to them that, before you get these roads, before you have this education, before you have the medical services in the hospital, money has to be collected. In terms of the religious leaders, I say this based on my experience when we are paying the tithe, the 10% in church. It's done diligently, and nobody asks how much one earns. Now, if a religious leader told people, actually, it's right to pay tax, and I'm sure even the Bible talks about it, I can assure you that there will be all that potential unlocked. I stand to be corrected, but I think that so many people out there who are just waiting for someone to tell them it's right to pay tax, and this is where our taxes go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Francis Kamlegea, one of the leading authorities here in Uganda on taxation. If you just tuned in, this is the 933 KFM debate on the economy. We are live on KFM and on NTV, so tell your friends about it and come and see what is happening in our economy. We're proudly partnering with Advocates Coalition for Development and Environment, ACCORD, and KCB Bank, making the difference. Well, we've just heard from Mr. Francis Kamlegea, and at the beginning we heard from Mr. Fred Mhumuza. And we have a chance for you to engage with us. So if you probably can't make it down to the Sheraton, what you could do is you could check out our Facebook page. It's Facebook.com/933KFM. But at the time being, we'd like to open the discussion up. If any of you have a pertinent issue, which one of the two discussants has mentioned, please walk up to the microphone and address the issue. I think we were complaining earlier that there's no gender balance on the panel. So I'd like to start with a lady. Please step up to the microphone before you. Or better yet, since you're a lady, let me lend you my microphone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to put my question mostly on the taxation, and I want to thank him for the presentation that he has made. But just because, like how I said earlier, you have to accept there is a problem in order for it to be solved. One of the problems that we're having in taxes, we have tax holidays. But the way these tax holidays are being given out is unfair. You find that an investor is given a tax holiday for 5 years or 30 years. And even after the 30 years, the investor goes back to his country. That means Ugandans, we are not benefiting. We have to see reasons why people are even given up to give up taxes. One of the other reasons why the donors have fallen up is because the corruption in our country. They give us money to do specific work, but we end up using the money to put in our pockets to benefit individuals. That is one of the reasons why and they told us that Uganda, if we don't come up to strongly fight corruption, then sincerely they are not going to give out. And if we show commitment, they will not give us some of the monies that we ask for. Then another thing why our tax rate has gone low. The first one is that we increase on the interest rate. You people have this, now I'm talking like a local person. When we had this thing of when you increase the interest rate, it went even 28%, and the governor was saying there was a lot of money in accumulation, forgetting that a lot of money in accumulation is on specific individuals. Not every Uganda has a lot of money, because if you tell me that you have a lot of money, If I had like money but I cannot buy a commodity but I have the money, that is different. But here we have the commodities but the money to purchase is not there. That's why even the businessmen who are carrying out investments going abroad to come, we are not able to carry out their business because of the loan and the interest rate. That is why even our budget for this financial year is, for the next financial year, is being affected, because Uganda Revenue was not able to collect the percentage that they promised to collect. So we have to come up strongly, and government and Uganda Revenue Authority, in order for us to even encourage our people to pay taxes, is first we fight corruption and they want services. I cannot give you money every year. You chop my salary, you chop whatsoever, and the money is going to specific individuals. Then why should I collect that money? So we have to come and fight and start by ourselves and as members of parliament. And the whole nation, let's not leave this to members of parliament alone, and all nations, because I always say that even voters should monitor their members of parliament to see whether they are doing the right thing as Ugandans. But first, you have to accept one of the things that has killed us is corruption and discriminating on the way you levy your taxes. Thank you.
Okay, just out of curiosity, what's your name and what do you do?
I'm called Honorable Nibanda Serena Alyoru, woman member of parliament, Butaleja district, and the youngest member of parliament, Ninth Parliament.
Okay, Honorable, thank you very much. But Francis, I think that was more of a presentation. She should have been a panelist, don't you think? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short break and we'll come back. We've got more of your questions, so keep it right here. This is the 933 debate on the economy, proudly sponsored by Accord and KCB Bank. We are live on 933 KFM and on NTV, turning on your world.
933 KFM debate. This is NTV. 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 This is NTV.
then it cannot invest to become competitive. Because competitiveness has to do with some elements of investment that one must do. Either you are borrowing, if the cost of borrowing becomes higher, then you are going to have a problem that you cannot compete because you're not going to lay that basic infrastructure that even allows you to participate in the race where others are participating. As we know, Kenya has a more advanced domestic resource mobilization system compared to Uganda. Kenya's interest rates are lower. Kenya has more established long-term sources of financing. In Uganda today, you cannot borrow at 30% and you are required to pay within 1 year, and you think you can compete with the Kenyans. So leaving aside the bad infrastructure and lack of railway, there are all these other things, but also there is the element of the human aspect, our own business-like mindedness to have all those. So it's definitely a whole range of things, and you cannot pull out only one of them, but we need to address all of them. But the macro framework is very, very fundamental, and the economy must not be growth, must not be held at ransom by anything. If it means reducing public administration, let's go for that. Let's reduce the size of government if it is costing the economy. Because an economy that grows at 3.2% is not creating opportunities for you to build and begin at home before you can compete even with the Kenyans. That's the whole message. So it's a bigger mess up of things that need to be fixed.
Thank you very much. Dr. Fred Muhumuza, Senior Advisor to the Minister of Finance. Dr. Fred, very true. I think we have his perspective, but is there another question? Let me get a question from that side. Yes, front. Please step up to the microphone.
Thank you. My name is Bamwine. And I want to ask, I think all the panelists, because I know they are capable. With these economic problems we have in the country and in the globe, in the mid-term and in the short term, what can a country like Uganda adapt such that we can be able to maneuver and not sink? Then lastly, the doctor, I think, he mentioned that he was talking about taxation. And he said other countries which are on the same range are progressively increasing their tax collection and tax base. And I'm asking myself, because you also Ugandan, which other sectors of the economy of the Ugandans, where do you think taxes are not being taxed from? Thank you so much.
Okay, so I think that's a question which can go to Francis, and a little bit also can be answered by Dr. Muhumuza.
Thank you, Mr. Bamwine. Maybe just one quick comment in response to Honorable's earlier comments. Honorable, there are no more tax holidays in Uganda, and I say that on the basis of the existing tax laws. We used to have tax holidays in the 1990s, and those were phased out completely. What we have now are sector-specific investment incentives, and those incentives are based on the needs of the particular sector. No, that's true. There are no tax holidays. Okay, I know when. Maybe I also need to explain here, by the way, I'm not from the Revenue Authority. I'm a tax consultant and a practitioner. And when you look at the income tax code of Uganda, there are no tax holidays. If people are able to get holidays, then I think that's a different issue which needs to be taken up by people in tax policy. Okay, let me then respond to the issue of sectors that are not heavily taxed. I believe there is a lot of potential in the real estate sector of the economy. It's been one of the fastest growing sectors, and when you look at the amount of money that the Revenue Authority collects from in terms of rental tax, it's very, very low. And many of you may be familiar with an initiative that the Revenue Authority came up with sometime last year, of asking people to disclose. Actually, they don't even want you to disclose the source of your income. But when you're transacting in land and the transaction is 50 million shillings or over, the Revenue Authority is very interested to know whether you've paid your taxes before you purchase land. That raised a lot of outcry from various sectors of society. I'm one person who came up very openly and supported that initiative. And I'll tell you why I did that. The way the tax law works, you spend money when you've earned it. If you haven't earned it, you've either borrowed it or got it as a way of a gift from somebody. So if you turn up spending 100 million shillings buying land or property, even $1 million, I think it's very, very important from the tax perspective to ensure that before you spend that money to buy whatever asset you want to spend it on, make sure that you paid your taxes. Now, the only way you can have 100 million shillings to spend is if you earned 150 million shillings. And then 30% of 150 is about 45 or 50, and then you're left with 100 to spend. So that is the way the tax base is going to increase. And we have to be very responsible here. You lose the moral authority to make demands on government in terms of public service and goods when you're not paying your taxes. And that is the reality.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kamlegia. I'd like to take a question from, I haven't had anybody from this side. Yes, the gentleman in the glasses.
Thank you. My name is Aaron Smith. My question, Mr. Francis, you say that the economy's GDP has been stuck at 13% for the last 10 years. And the problem has been due to poor collection of taxes. I think you know, I think you can, I was asking, what kind of measures has the URA as an organization concerned with collecting of taxes done to make sure they collect these revenues? Thank you very much.
So, Francis, back to you again. You're on the hot seat today.
Okay, the comment I made was that the tax revenue to GDP has stagnated at 13%, between 12 and 13% for 10 years. Now, GDP is a measure of the total economic production of a country. Now, if all we are collecting is only 12% of the total value of production in the country, then we're not doing very well. I started off my presentation by saying the tax laws are fair, the tax laws are easy to understand, they are equitable, and they're designed in such a way that people who are compliant actually are facilitated. So why is the tax revenue to GDP stagnated at that rate? When countries, I gave you the example of Rwanda. 10 years ago, Rwanda was 5%. Rwanda now is close to 15%. The reason is people are not paying taxes in Uganda.
But why?
Now,
Don't make focus.
okay, maybe that's the debate, that's the question we should be addressing. But Mitch, help me out here. I think that's what we should be debating here, because there's money out there, but why are people not paying taxes?
Okay, Honorable. Yes, you spoke earlier. Maybe you have something which can help him.
Actually, I really had no intention to talk. But when I'm provoked, I usually talk. Because surely, does even the government have a moral right to ask tax from people when it doesn't give services? I was looking at myself, me, Matemba, as an individual, and I was saying, wait a minute. What do I get from this government? Me as an individual, I didn't even get any retirement thing at all. Having worked for this nation for so many years and worked so hard, they just chased me away like that. Honestly, these are real things. After chasing me like that, then they say, bring tax. For me, where I stay in Portobello, for instance, I don't see any government at all. I mean, when my children are sick, nobody treats them. There's, let me tell you, gentlemen, there must be a moral right to demand the tax from Ugandans. And in any case, I was surprised, you two who have talked, maybe the two are coming. Nobody mentioned corruption at all. Nobody mentioned the sharks that are stealing all the money, that Ugandans are so angry that even if they had little money to pay tax, they wouldn't pay it. Secondly, how do you pay? Do you know how big the government of Uganda is? The government of patronage, which is finishing all the little money that people pay for tax. How many are they? So many districts therefore, so many RDC therefore, so many deputy RDC therefore, so many advisors, So many, every nonsense. Eh? And all these people, Mr. Chairman, all these people are getting allowances, are getting salaries, are being treated when they fall sick, they go abroad, and you people, you don't know what you're talking about. And all,
There you have it.
all this is for what? Please, Ugandans are law-abiding people. We even pay our 10%. For me, anything I get, whether it is a fuel thing given by a code when I present, when I get 200 for fuel, I pay immediately I take off 20 for my church 10%. Because I know it is God who is guarding me, who is keeping me, who is providing for me. And therefore I pay my 10%. But what is this government doing to its people? What services is it delivering that it should have a moral right? It is robbing us. It is robbing us. We should arrest it even and
All right, this is the 933 debate on the economy. Very, very passionate pleas from Honorable Matembe. We're going to be back after the break. We still have got more panelists coming up. We've got Professor Nwagab Augustus, and we've got more views from the studio. And at the same time, you can find us on Facebook /933KFM, or you can walk on down to the Sheraton. It is hot in here. Stay right here.
933 KFM.
This is NTV. 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 This is NTV.
Still don't believe Duracell lasts up to 10 times longer than your ordinary batteries? See for yourself.
This is NTV. This is NTV. This is NTV.
With Accord and supported by KCB Bank Uganda.
Districts are returning money. And when the finance minister is reading the new budget, it doesn't include the returned money. Where does it go? So, I'd like to know, All my panelists look very intimidated now. Nobody wants to answer. Who can answer that question? Yes. Dr. Fred.
I am here missing out our technical discussion on the budget that's coming on the 14th. Part of that is the money is plowed back into the system because government does not have accrual accounts that balances are carried forward. So whatever is brought back is put again into the pool and represented for appropriation to finance the next budget. But it's not that every money is returned. There is money that will be committed that the year ends, but this money has already been assigned responsibilities. A contract is ongoing. That money is not returned. So it's not that all the money comes back. And when the financial year closes on the 30th of June, the accounting officers are given an extra 3 months to compile their accounts, but also to utilize any of the resources that are available. So that is usually the area. It is not that money that is returned is put in another basket that then somebody walks off with. No, it is put back into the same pool. But I wanted to respond maybe to the question that he raised. The 2-3 things that should be done for us to move to where we need to go. And as I said, growth and austerity are big debates. And I said there is no concurrency out there. You know, the French president went because of austerity. Greece, as we speak, has no government because of austerity. But people don't want austerity. And austerity is not just cutting budgets across. Austerity simply is looking at a review, a critical review and strictness of government budgets, government programs, government operations, to achieve at least 2 things. One, to ensure that only the vital expenditures are made. Number 2, every expenditure gives value for money. Those 2 things can be core that we need to get to. That only the vital expenditures are made and only we are targeting value for money. Now, number 1 would call for an ideological review. What do we want to do? I've already told you that we are oversubscribed as a government. And I can hear Honorable Matembe here may be saying, what is government doing for me? That does not mean government is not doing things. There are so many things that government is doing, but there are so many other things that need to be done. So you want to review and say, what is our ideology? What do we need to approach? What do we need to fund? That is critical at this point in time. The things to be funded later on, let them be funded later on. The second aspect of value for money goes with institutional review. And that is where all the corruption aspects come in, the correctness of the expenditures come in. Some of the people returning money is not that they could not use the money, but because of the strict measures we have put on them, that we have given you this money, you must spend as per the work plan. Now the financial year ends and somebody has not yet even worked out a work plan. These are realities, they are out there, and so this money is brought back. It's not a question that you must spend the money. For me, value for money, if you can't give value for money, that money is better off being brought back. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fred. I know there are a number of you who might not agree with their perspectives, but remember they're here, it's because of their authority and their perspectives. A lot of these are just their opinions. So I'd like to have, yes, the gentleman in the light blue suit. Please walk up to the microphone.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm by name David Etuk, consultant HRM, Nusda, Uganda. We are discussing a very critical thing which is affecting this nation. We have talked about tax. My observation, where are we collecting tax and taxing people from what they are doing? 1, people are not working. 2, you are not going to tax somebody because he's 30 years or he's 10 to 18 years, but you should tax him out of what he or she is doing. That's number 1. Number 2, source of revenue. What we are seeing in this nation right now, we are only having service delivery. And it is very expensive. What I'm saying is, Uganda as a nation lives on two big things: agriculture and industry. Industries are not there. Whatever is there, I don't know what they are exporting. That can bring revenue to the nation. Agriculture has been watered down, and everybody down there is crying. People in the villages have been down there. They are willing to work, but they are not being empowered. Those who are sent to work with them are corrupt, and here I put my feet down and say, MPs, before you talk anything, rectify the laws in the parliament. There are laws there which are archaic, and if somebody is apprehended over an issue, it cannot be implicated. MPs, you are also being audited. We have done appraisal for the for the 1 year gone. If you have talked nonsense, you'll get out. If you cannot help your employers, who are the voters? Your employers are the voters. You are the political employees. Make sure you must heed to their voice. I come back to government offices. Honestly, we have highly educated people in this nation. We know how to write books. We know how to do everything, but we are not honest. That is one aspect. We are not honest at all. You gave example of Rwanda, that they are actually moving forward. They are organized. I admire the way they are moving, because people there are honest. They have taken the country to their hearts. But many people in this country have not taken this country to their hearts. People are grabbing things. So, as we discuss this, as we are going for this budget, let's go there first, and we come out with a budget that it will be effectively implemented and everybody start enjoying. Otherwise, we are here talking. Some of us are smiling. Many of us are glittering. I've taken a walk in this country, district by district, but many people are having crocodile smiles on their face. I said, why? So it means there is inside burning. Something's wrong somewhere. And until we come down...
Honorable Consultant, can I ask you to just wind up, please?
I close it by saying, let us have this country at heart, all of us. Let us try to look at the causes of the problems instead of blaming people. So that after getting all this, we can now go down and say, okay, solutions to these problems are this. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. You're tuned in to the 933 debate on the economy. It is hot in here, and we've got questions coming in on Facebook, and I'm sure everybody wants to say something. However, we've got to get on. We've got another panelist. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Professor Augustus Nwagaba, and his question is a simple one. Is Uganda on the right track to poverty eradication and to attainment of the Millennium Development Goals? Professor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good evening, viewers. I think let me begin by saying that let's bring this debate to the level where people can understand what we are talking about. Now, the issues which we are talking about on the table are very, very simple issues. These are issues that we deal with every day, and we don't need to be complicated or to bring very serious economic modeling or measurements here. They are real things that you deal with every day. So when we talk about whether budgets, because I came here in the context of budgets, in the context of making a budget, and I want to explain to you what is a budget. A budget is a simple tool that should provide discipline in the control of resources which you have entrusted somebody. It is also, number two, an issue of law, because a budget is presented in the parliament as a bill. And then when it is assented to, and when every minister has read what we call a ministerial policy statement, then the budget actually is enacted, it becomes action, and then we should start spending money. All that money that's supposed to be spent is your money, is you. So you have given trust to people in the government to be able to control and spend that money. Now, when we started with the Poverty Eradication Action Plan in 1997, Uganda was the first country to develop this document which we call the PRSP, Poverty Strategy Reduction paper. In Africa, we have 54 countries. South Sudan has just become number 54. And you can congratulate the government here, because we were the first people to develop this document. It was a wonderful document. As already somebody here has said, that Uganda has one of the best brilliant people. We speak very big words. We are very, very brilliant. We have spoken in international conferences. Every day I have a lecture at the London School of Economics with this Ed Miliband and so on. We are discussing issues in Europe, in Germany, in the USA, and we are talking very complicated words. Very good documents, very good policies. If you look at the PIP, you could think that we would land in heaven by 2004. What happened, ladies and gentlemen, is that the PIP actually, we had 4 major things to do. We had categorized them into 4 major pillars, those who were technical enough to know what was being done. And the first one was actually attainment of macroeconomic stability and to attain economic performance where each person would say that I have a livelihood, and which is sustained livelihood. And I want to actually congratulate the government here. Actually, that macroeconomic stability and a little bit of temporary economic performance happened. It actually happened. Pillar number 1 was achieved, at least in the medium term. If somebody has been asking in the medium term, it was achieved. You remember that from around 97 to about 2006, we had very good GDP growth, about 6.2%. We had core inflation. I don't want to be technical today. I didn't want to be technical, but I will be forced somehow because of lack of time. But core inflation remained at about 4.2, 4.55%, which was very good, because this one was one of the lowest almost in Africa, and also in world standards. The world standards. Now, the other pillars, ladies and gentlemen, the other pillars, pillar 2, pillar 3, pillar 4, and the rosette is here. Nothing was achieved. Completely nothing. Nothing was achieved. Mothers to go to hospital, no delivery. Deliveries, 76% of the mothers deliver at home. How many mothers die? 16 mothers every day die. 16 mothers every day die. For you are just seated here. They have buried now 16 mothers since morning. You are just seated here and drinking water in Sheraton. 16 mothers. This is I said we are going to discuss things which are here, not in heaven. This is a kamunye, a whole kamunye which has got an accident and everybody has perished. These are the mothers who have died today in the process of producing a baby. Have you ever seen such a calamity? You are going to give life to the world and you die in the process. This number is 435 for every 10,000, every 100,000. And the reason why we keep 100,000, we a little bit don't want to threaten you. We just want to see as if it is a very small figure. It is a very, very big figure. And it's very sad news. Uganda, we are doing very, very badly on that front. That was social sector. Education, in terms of education, government here thinks that we have achieved the Millennium Development Goal on education. And when you read the documents, they are saying they have achieved that. And you are here, you are Ugandans. Don't talk about complicated economics. There's nothing like complicated economics here. You have children, isn't it? Where do they study from? Your brothers have children. Where do they study from? If you have some money All these people who are seated here. There is nobody who is seated here and you have some money and your children is in public school. Put up your hand. Put up your hand. Your children, you have all put them where? In private schools. This is the private sector which Dr. Muhumuza is talking about. That the private sector is very good. It has come here. It has supplemented the public service. I asked the president the other day. You were all here on TV. I asked the president. The president, I told him, you have done very well in the army. You have made the UPDF one of the best institutions, isn't it? It has weaknesses. It has weaknesses just like any other institution. But the president has done well in managing UPDF. It is an institution, you can go to the bus with my friend, Brigadier Major General Soke, and sit in the bus and all you pay, isn't it? Very well disciplined in the army. Then I asked the president, what has made you fail to do the same thing in public service? In public service. We gave you votes. We gave you votes, 68%, if it is true, that the president got votes, and he has the mandate. Now, what makes him fail to have public service work? That's the question number one. So we don't have effective public service. And when the Poverty Education Action Plan was implemented, we invited Oxford Policy Management. These are international consultants. We worked with them. And what came out, just listen, what came out from the Oxford Policy Management was that actually the Poverty Education Action Plan, listen to three things which happened to this plan. One, very high level of corruption, which killed the Poverty Education Action Plan, which was the best document in the world. Everybody came here to look at this document. We earned a lot of prizes for it. We lost 900 billion. We lose actually 947 now billion every year. And my sister Maria Chonoko is going to be reading the budget. The president is going to read the State of the Nation address on Thursday. And then Maria will come in on 14th. Maria will tell you that the budget for Minister of Works is about 900 billion. It will be the same money. Are we together? It will be the same money, which we lose every year in corruption alone. And do you know, nothing happens. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. This is what the sadness that we have, that countries have done very well. I can, for example, give you a country like South Korea. South Korea got money from 1954 to 1974. More money, which we have got. When I was actually looking at figures, we have received more money than South Korea got from 1954 to 74. And do you know, South Korea got the money and they have paid back. Where is South Korea now? It's a developed country. Where is Uganda now? Which was the same.
Lower.
What is the difference? South Korea came up with the model to deal with thieves. To deal with thieves. Then they dealt with thieves. South Korea managed to host the World Cup, as you know, with Japan in 1992. And if you go to see the T-shirt which Beckham put on, you pay about 150 pounds. That's the money they are getting. It's a very wonderful country. And actually what they did last month is that everything now in South Korea is It is e-learning. They don't use any chalk anymore. They don't use any paper anymore. The whole country is E. Now, number three, and then I will be done, is that what killed our policies is that we mainly embarked on cosmetic address of problems. And what happened is actually that we tended to focus very much on economic growth. Those who are economists here. We focused too much on economic growth, and we achieved a little bit of economic growth temporarily. But what lacked, and what I was very quick to advise government early enough, was that we lacked a robust means of what we call economic fundamental. You know, in economics we have what we call economic fundamentals, and one of them, the first one which everybody should go home with today, is that you need production. That's economic fundamental number one. Even if you haven't talked about thieves, let the thieves, you know, thieves will also steal what is there. You saw Chogam money came, people stole money and got tired. But also we had some leftovers, so when you are moving along Nairo Avenue, you see something done, isn't it? People stole money and got tired, at least there was something. So money was much during Chogam. So now what we are lacking is that we actually don't have production. Even these thieves which you see, they are actually not stealing a lot of money. Kenya has an economy which is 4 times the Ugandan economy, 28 trillion. Our budget is just 7 trillion, 7.3. So we need to generate money for the thieves to eat, and since God is far from us for the time being, we need to deal with them later, but let's address the issue of production. There's no production, and I will give an example of agriculture. Agriculture has declined, but 76% of the population is still in agriculture. And I've told the government, you cannot argue, you cannot make an argument that we should continue having telecom sector. There's somebody who made a mistake here. Uganda is not growing because of any other sector. It's just growing because of 2 sectors. One is telecom sector, communication, and the other one is banks. Telecom is 21.2, bank is 10.1 growth. And then agriculture is declining to GDP is now 9.6. But agriculture declining to GDP is not good because 76% of the population are still where? In agriculture. So you cannot convince me that we should leave it to decline, contributing to GDP, because it is a primary sector. Well understood, but people are still where? In agriculture. And we need therefore to support it. Meanwhile, if you want to move them, then let's move as they go to telecom and banking together with them. Why do you want to go to telecom and banking and then leaving all these people there? Who is on this telecom and banking? We have got 23 banks here now. And the 4 of them, the first 4, which we don't want to mention here, most of them are my friends, we shouldn't mention them, are foreign banks. And they control 75% of the financial assets. 4 of them. Now, let me take a little bit to another country. China. The 4th largest bank in the world. After French Paribas, JP Morgan had problems last month. They lost $3 billion. But it's the 2nd bank in the world. Then you have HSBC, the 3rd. Do you know the 4th bank in the world? Agricultural Bank of where? Of China. With $21.7 billion financial assets. How did they raise this money? Listing on stock exchange by the Chinese who came and bought their bank and their bank. They have the lowest interest rate in the world. In fact, their interest rate is 0.000007. There is no interest rate. There is no interest rate. There is no interest rate. Why? Because this bank was listed on the stock exchange. The Chinese bought their bank. That's why they are giving us a lot of money here. This money is almost free. This money is almost free. The money is in Congo. The money doesn't even have any conditionality. So we are here for them when they were listing their bank. For you here, you were very busy selling what? Selling off cooperative bank. That's why I want to congratulate Centenary Bank. If anybody is here with Centenary Bank. I think we have to congratulate Centenary Bank and the other banks which have come and they are going to be indigenized banks. Is processing. Otherwise, private sector, Dr. Mumza, the way the private sector works, have you ever seen water climbing a hill? Put up your hand if you have ever seen water climbing a hill. How does water move? Those who studied physics, like my friend Dr. Zach, water moves using laws of what? Of gravity. That's how the private sector works. It works by easy things, doing easy things, telecom. Have you seen anybody in the private sector going to agriculture? In Kabul, in Bali. They can't. Because they know they had things there. There's no insurance. The weather is bad. They will not go. They will just go to airtime where you are going to cheat your money. You will ring 3 times in order for your call to pass through and they just get money. So that's how they do their thing. Now, if you want private sector-led growth, which is Uganda's neoliberal economy, and we are, by the way, the 3rd highest growth in the world. That's why you need to also congratulate the government if you want. If you don't want it, you are free. Is that the first growing country in the world currently is Turkey. And the 2nd country is what? China. Turkey has bypassed China. And that's why you see Turkey is actually here. Kampala Road, they are there and everywhere. Turkey is the first growing country in the world at 11.2 growth. Then we have China, 10.7. Uganda currently, Dr. Mumza is here. It has been about 5.7, now 3.2. And the people were telling us Uganda is not going to suffer global financial crisis. As if you are not integrated in the financial system. Now, we need to calm down. When you have a problem, you agree that we have a problem, isn't it? Agree that is a problem. That is a problem. Just agree. It is not good to tell lies, because eventually the truth will set you what? Free. Because we told people that there is a problem. Uganda was going to suffer a problem. We don't have production. We export little. To be very precise, those who are working in the bank and the Ministry of Finance, we export things worth $2.43 billion every year. But we import $4.87 billion. So we import 2 times. So we earn, it is like you go to the market, you had goods, you had a basket of potatoes. They gave you 500 shillings. Now you contracted the debt now of 1,000 shillings that day. So you earned 500, but you spent 1,000. That's the way we are doing with our export sector performance. We need production, and then lastly, Mr. Moderator, we need financial prudence. That's my last point. We need financial prudence. Because the reason why the country is in this turbulence, you see, is 2 major factors. One of them is the monetary policy. And the country, when you go home, the money you have in your pocket, the food you will find in your homes, the way you will get fees for your children in the morning, and the tea you will give them in the morning, is controlled by 2 major things only. 2 major things. One of them is the monetary policy, which is managed by my friend Governor Mutivera and his team in the central bank, and fiscal policy, which is managed by President Museveni and his team, especially delegated to our sister here, Maria. So the central bank had been doing very well, as you all know, up to around 2006. But management of fiscal policy has become a problem. So the URA, that's why people here are saying URA was doing very well. And this is true. But then the spending of that money became a problem and a challenge. Yeah. And so even if money is collected, Francis, even if money is collected, it is very difficult if the money is not well managed. Now we have, poverty has, to answer your question very, very precisely, and then I will finish. Poverty, we are told, has reduced from 56%, and Rosette is here, can attest to those figures, to now 24.5. That means that poverty has actually gone down. Now, I don't want to debate this one. You are there, you are there. You are the one who are there. You are there, you are the one who know. Now, if you are part of that process, well and good. If you are part of that process, well and good, there's no need to write a PhD on that one. You are there, you know the money you have in your pocket. But let me explain to you some technical term and then we'll finish. The way we measure whether poverty has gone down is not the percentage of the people who are not poor. It's a simple term which will allow me to explain it, and then I will explain it in English language. In economic modeling, this term is called the Gini coefficient. And it's a very simple, I will explain it in 1 second and you will understand it. It measures, it's an index, a very simple index, and it measures how many people actually have this money which we are generating in the country. How many people in the church language, in religious language, how many people partake of this growth that we have. And in my conclusion is that actually many people, you are living on the wrong side. The wrong side. The money we are generating is enjoyed by few. It is concentrated in the hands of few. And I will explain it. The Gini coefficient, when I'm explaining, is actually 0.47. You can even write it down. It is 0.47. Its real value is 0.47. If you wanted it to be a very good value, and people here are happy, if you wanted everybody here to be happy, and you see their faces, you know poverty is not something to hide. You will see people's faces. You will see just people's faces. It's not something to hide. It's not something to hide. Even those who want to hide their face and they have 5 million in the pocket, they would be smiling slowly. If you pulled all your money out of your pocket, just right now, and put it on here, we count it and distribute that money equally. Are we together? Distribute that money equally. That Gini coefficient should be equal to 0.0. And there are countries, can you imagine there are countries which have done that? They get their money, they get their oil, they get their resources, they get their agriculture, they get their industry, and they distribute their money kabisa equally. And I can give examples here. One is Denmark, one country is Denmark, another one is Norway. Norway, for example, has oil, and it's the best country in the world in the publishing of what you have earned and the publishing of what you have spent in oil. I wish our oil sector go to Norway immediately and learn what the Denmark is doing. Now, if the other money you put it here, all of you, money you have in the pocket, put it here. We give it to my brother David Procoro here. All of us. And he takes it. God forbid. That value, just listen, that value would be equal to 1.0. Are we together? Yeah. So that value has two values only. Are we together? It is 0.0 to 1.0. 0.0, everybody has a good livelihood, everybody is getting a hospital, everybody is getting a clinic, everybody is getting, child is treated, children have school fees, everybody had milk in the morning. I was in Addis Ababa, Economic Commission for Africa, and we were in a meeting, we had a certain lady from Denmark, she got flu. And ambulance, a Fokker ambulance came to pick her for treatment. Treatment of what? For us, we ask whether she's the daughter of the Prime Minister. Of course, that's the question we ask. Are you a daughter of the Prime Minister? No, I'm just a peasant. Somewhere from Kisoro or Butareja or somewhere. Just a peasant. Not even from Kampala. That's how their country works. Now, Honorable Matembe, in such a country, why don't you want to pay tax? Why would you want to pay tax? In such a country, why do you want to pay tax?
Thank you very much, Professor Nwagaba Augustus. You're right here, Professor. I'm sorry we've got to cut you a bit short. We'll come back a bit later. This is the 933 debate on the economy, and we're going to be back after a few seconds, and we're going to hear more from Charles Ochichi, the Executive Director, right here, who's going to be telling us about how to set up a business and to make things profitable and sustainable. This is 933 KFM Live. You can catch us. We're streaming on kfm.co.ug, or you can come on down here to the Sheraton. Keep it right there.
933 KFM debate on the economy in partnership with Accord and supported by KCB Bank Uganda. KFM.
This is NTV. 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 is NTV. This is NTV. This is NTV. This is NTV. This is NTV.
We are coming to you from the Sheraton, Renzori Ballroom. And today we've had a chance to listen to a number of authorities. Before the break, we heard from Professor Augustus Nwagaba, and he was giving us his perspective on the economy. We've got a number of questions which are still coming in on our Facebook page. You can go to Facebook.com/933KFM, and we're also streaming live. If you don't have a TV, man, get onto the internet. It is kfm.co.ug. Today, we're partnering together with Accord and KCB Bank, and we're also live on NTV and 933KFM. Question here from Mama Mabira. She says, how can we tax monies which are kept under people's beds? Because, you know, in Uganda, there are so many people who have wealth which is illegally acquired. What do we do? Another question from a gentleman called Fred. He says that in a working economy, buyers and sellers must be able to transact freely. But Uganda has a monster called kickback. So, is there really voluntary exchange of business in Uganda's economy? So, those are questions which our panelists can discuss and answer for us a bit later on. But ladies and gentlemen, it's with great pleasure that we'd like to welcome Mr. Charles Ochichi, the Executive Director of Enterprise Uganda, and he's going to be giving us tips on how we can build up a business, start it from scratch, and make it sustainable. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Charles Ochichi.
Thank you very much, Mitch, and good evening, viewers and listeners. I want to first put that question into perspective by giving you the local scene as it stands today. I have here a newspaper which says, today we have got unemployment at 83%. For people we've taken through education, for people we've sold land, sold livestock, taken loans, and we call it investment. At the end of the day, those hands of our mothers, those hands of our fathers, completely burnt out and spoiled and broken backs. They don't get any return on that investment. On the other page, I have again put in a Sunday Monitor article which says, the crisis of unemployment in Uganda, and they touch on various options, not least bring in foreign direct investment. And they give an example. What if we brought 10 MTNs to Uganda, which is not possible because the sector is already congested. But theoretically, what if we brought them? They are saying we cannot create more than 6,000 jobs. But we are getting on the graduate level alone about 40,000 Ugandans coming out with degrees. So even if we brought 10 MTNs, still we are very far from the reality. They talk about going abroad for the Cheyos. They are also saying, even those so-called destinations we used to go to, they are also already faced with diminishing job opportunities. They don't want us. They are telling us, please do it in your own countries. So this is the situation which is in our hands here. I've got another one here. 23 Ugandans to hang over drugs in China. Desperate situations calling desperate measures or responses. It's a very real thing in our midst. The other day I read our own members of parliament going to Malaysia to rescue our ladies who had gone there hoping to do a decent job, only to be shown rooms where they would be doing night duty, which was not their aspiration. I just wanted to give you that picture so that when I come to what now I feel is the base of my submission. You know where it's coming from. We've talked about productivity of this country, and today we're number 121 out of 142. Kenya is 102, Tanzania is 120, Rwanda is 70. Our productivity is below those countries I've mentioned. Now, old school of economics says factors of production are largely 4 or 5. Capital, labor, land, technology, and then entrepreneurship. Colleagues, we've spoken so much about all the other things so many times. We've never picked the Ugandan and put Uganda in the center of the equation. And there lies a big, big problem in our efforts to rescue the country from the kind of underdevelopment that we are seeing today. If you've got 33 million Ugandans and you want to depend on 1,000 taxpayers, just see the burden that you are trying to load onto these individuals. Now, coming to the subject of starting an enterprise, let me say this. By the very nature a human being was created, we are meant to be people who are conquerors, who can take lead in creating our own destinies, our own directions. Because when you see how God created Adam, he just threw a man in the forest. He left him without a shirt, no trouser, no food, no telephone, and he abandoned him and left. He said, take charge of the planet. So at that point he said, I'm confident the moment you have got the right mindset, you should be able to move on and take charge of the planet. But why is private sector or entrepreneurship that hard? Ladies and gentlemen, we've given public interventions to NADS, we have given microcredit to Ugandans, but as we do all those interventions, do we know that there are 2 C's that must always be recognized when you walk into the private sector arena? C number 1 that you mustn't forget as you walk into the journey of becoming an entrepreneur is competition. Today, the producer of tomatoes in Mbarara is competing with the supplier from South Africa. The producer of chicken in Teso is competing with the supplier of chicken from Kenya. If we do not get our people to recognize that it's not just about capital, it's not just about telling you to go and do something on your own, but having the mindset that is there to compete with the very best, with the most resourced, with the most competent. Without you seeing them, they supply your market. C number 2 is choice. A Ugandan will never come and buy your chicken just because you're Ugandan. I'm going to buy your chicken because it meets my requirements in terms of quality, delivery, price, and all the other parameters. I will never come and buy from you and just say, oh, Mr. Kamlega, I need to sympathize with you. Let me at least buy these bad tomatoes from you so that you take some money home. Never. So, until Ugandans appreciate that entrepreneurship is about the 2 C's, choice and competition, the 2 factors you can't do much about, but just fit into. Now, because we didn't recognize that, and we omitted that a lot, here is the scenario in our country. 70% of our entrepreneurs close within 24 months. You look at a horizon of 5 years, 90% of them disappear. You go for 10 years, 99% of these fellows disappear. It speaks volumes for our country. But remember the factors of production, the closing binding bond is entrepreneurship. Now, if we cannot compete with people we even don't see, to what extent do we hope to create competitive value chains in the various sectors in our own country? As I look at some of this, I like to cite one of those examples that we all are familiar with. One of the leaders of this country some time back decided that let Ugandans become entrepreneurs by force. He said, within 90 days, these other Ugandans must surrender their assets and hand them over to other Ugandans. So he said, I got a message through a dream, and the dream was given to him in Moroto. He drives up to Tororo. He says, this dream is so important. If I don't announce it from Tororo, I may get an accident before I reach Kampala to announce the dream. So when he reached Tororo, he made the announcement. The short and long of this is that Ugandans were given factories with the items in them. Ugandans were given factories with a ready market. And the other Ugandans who are now owners of assets left with tears in their eyes. Let's look at a story 30 years down the line. Can you trace the Ugandans who picked the factories, who picked the various assets, and check what has happened to them? Can you now check on the Asians who went to UK? Because the other day, our own president met 2 of them. One of them was now in the top 200 richest British in that country. I bring this message to all of us here because in the private sector, 2 things are fundamental: attitude and business skills. When I bring the word attitude, I want us to recognize that what mindset do you have as you pretend to walk into private sector? As you pick a goat from NADS, what mindset do you have? We've been spending 100 billion per year to get more goats, to get many things we want our people to have. To what extent are we seeing a multiplicity of these goats supplying the Arab world? Or did we just say that this man needs a goat and let's give him a goat and you leave him there? Mindset, extremely important. Now when I come and talk about this, I just want to put it into perspective again and just say, assuming now we got some people to bring us good jobs, what are the kind of salaries that prevail today in our country? Ladies and gentlemen, the various jobs available today come from education sector, flowers, fish, supermarkets. Do you know the average salary today? It is between 150 and 300,000 from those jobs. Do this simple arithmetic. 300,000 remove rent of 100,000. Remove transport of 60,000. That's already 160. Remove food for 100,000. Remove other needs, a shirt, whatever, second-hand shoes, 30,000. The total is 290. He saves 10,000. I'm putting this into picture because if this fellow of the 300,000 can save 10,000, in a year it is 120. What is the average cost of a degree today? It's about 9 million. How many years does this fellow have to save the 10,000 per month to recover the cost of a degree of 9 million? The figures are here. It is 75 years. Now, at that point, the eyes have closed, the legs cannot carry you, but you are supposed to be still working to just recover the cost of the degree. Now, I want to close by just saying that starting an enterprise is the easier part of it. Keeping an enterprise in the market is the difficult part of it. It calls for persistence. It calls for being able to manage image. It calls for being able to be a continuous learner. All these qualities are not easily announced and somebody appreciates them. This country must begin to have structured entrepreneurship interventions that cultivate the mindset of an entrepreneur. Tony Blair, in his book, when he was writing his memoirs, he said, any interventions of a public nature, first and foremost, must be seen as transitory or passing interventions. If you intervene with the population with a view of telling them that depend on me, I'm here for you, you've damaged that population. So, in his book he said, as you go to intervene in public programs, especially of economic nature, the first thing you need to be able to do is to unset mindsets of that population. Then reset those mindsets so that they begin to know they have entered a territory of no forgiveness. In the private sector, there are no grandmothers. There are no age. There's no age. You don't announce that I'm a young person, I'm selling chicken, buy from me. No. So, I want to conclude by saying this. What can we do as a country? This word has since disappeared in the vocabulary of Uganda. Small and medium scale enterprises. These fellows are collapsing every other day. They are collapsing not because they want to close those businesses. Do you know Ugandans who bought assets through privatization? Over 70% of those assets were bought by local Ugandans. They could not hold on to them. They couldn't run them. Today in Uganda, there are many big indigenous companies that have taken loans at prime rates. They cannot handle transition. They can't handle succession planning. SMEs must begin to come back into our vocabulary, because the competition of a country is a summation of the large enterprises, middle and medium-sized enterprises, and then the grassroots enterprises. All that entire chain will contribute towards the competitiveness of a given economy. Now, as I conclude, I want to say this. According to a report I have here, it says middle-income Ugandans are now 10 million. And if that is true, I want to tell you this. Everybody in Uganda must begin to have a mindset of an investor. What is your salary? How much are you putting aside, apart from the consumption that we have gotten so used to? Did you know that today NSSF is collecting about 600 billion per year? 600 billion. But that's 15% of the salaried people. Assuming the other Ugandans also saved another 15%. Do we need external investors? Can we direct Ugandans now to be in the lead? And if external investors come, it's okay, because then they go into joint venture. It is painful to see Mukwano attempting to be the grower of sunflower, at the same time trying to run a large factory. But why does he do that? He tries to depend on the population, which within a season gets so satisfied because of one harvest. And the next time your factory is underperforming, the next thing you will do, where can I get land so that this factory can go at full capacity? The value chain must all be attended to. As I close, China has taken a deliberate position. 6 million graduate Chinese are, after the training, must be taken through practical entrepreneurship skills. And then they are allowed to go through the whole world. You will see Chinese in Somalia, in Uganda, in India, and it's correct, it's okay. We want that to happen so that we can learn from them. USA is putting $2.5 billion every year to build local entrepreneurs. United States, it puts $12 billion every year, pound sterling, to build local entrepreneurs. This is investing in your future taxes. Colleagues, let's bring back the SMEs into our discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Charles Ochichi, Executive Director of Enterprise Uganda and motivational speaker. You're right here at the KFM 933 Economic Debate. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we've got a couple of questions, like this one. How can Ugandans have the courage to pay taxes, yet they see their money being spent on tear gas and fighter jets? Someone else asks, why is the gap between the rich and the poor so big? Unlike Kenya, Uganda doesn't have a middle class, does it? Those are the questions that we'll be talking about and more. You can find us on Facebook /933KFM, or you can find us live on kfm.co.ug. This is the 933 KFM live debate on the economy. We'll be right back.
933 KFM debate on the economy in partnership with Accord and supported by KCB Bank Uganda. KFM.
This is NTV. This is NTV. This is NTV. This This is NTV. This is NTV. This is NTV. This is NTV. This is NTV.
Debate on the economy, and we're coming to you live from the Sheraton. And before the break, we had a very fantastic opportunity to listen in to Mr. Charles Ochichi telling us how to build up sustainable businesses. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say a very special thank you to all of our 4 panelists. Professor Nwaga, a big round of applause to him. Yes, future Vice Chancellor, yes. Official. Big round of applause to Dr. Fred Mumuza, ladies and gentlemen. To Francis Kamlegia, big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. And to Mr. Charles Ochichi. At this moment, the floor is yours. If you have an issue which is burning and you really want to say something, I think this is it. The floor is totally yours. Yes.
Thank you. My first question goes to Mr. Ochichi. I very much agree with you that SMEs is the way to go for Uganda, but you have left us hanging. As an expert in this area, what would you advise government to do? My next question goes to my lecturer, Dr. Fred Muhumuza. You are also a senior advisor to government on finances. You have also given us very good proposals on how we could support the private sector. For example, how Ugandans would also benefit from this support from the government to also do private investments. So as an advisor to government, what has happened to your advice? And maybe to wind it up, Francis, I share your sentiments, but I also want to agree very much with the other previous sentiments from the floor of Ugandans who are not happy because they would not want to pay tax because they don't see the value. But there is one area I wanted you to hint on. You notice very well, because currently I see so many Ugandans who are paying taxes, who are paying pay as you earn. But because of the low threshold, they are running away from their professions. I give you an example of teachers. So many teachers have run away from the teaching profession because they are being taxed that peanut. What would you advise? I thank you.
All right. Those are quite a number of questions. There's another one here from Honorable. Honorable is asking, how will you get Uganda to employ the youth? And you know, here there's a story that it's only technical know-who and so and so. So you'll never have equal development. The youth need these opportunities. At this moment, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to hand over the microphone to a very, very special individual. This is the 933 KFM debate on the economy. So why not have somebody from KFM? It's with great pleasure that I'd like to introduce Mr. Roger Mugisha, who hosts the breakfast show, The Mighty Breakfast. Big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mitch. We're taking turns now so that we can quickly go through the questions that have been asked. Very quickly to remind our listeners who are listening to us live and those who are streaming, not forgetting those who are watching live on NTV, we are at the Kampala Sheraton Hotel, and we came here under the theme of effectiveness of the national budget to discover how the billions affect the shilling in your pocket. I don't know whether that has been answered so far. If it's not being answered, well, we'll take more questions. Once again, I'd like to thank our panelists for taking time to be with us here. Honorable Karahanga, you have a question there. I'll just hand over the microphone very quickly and we move on.
Mine is largely a question or comment. What we have here in Uganda basically is not a government of the people. No, it is a socio-economic bonanza where 3 layers of a road turn out to be one and the other 2 are shared in a hotel somewhere in Serena or here in Sheraton at an evening drink. Just look at the road, just look up here, Rumumba Avenue, just immediately below State House. I don't know whether you've passed there. What we see is not a road with potholes, but potholes with some bit of a road. And that goes on, day by day. But we as leaders, especially even parliamentarians, we also have a role. We have a role to begin asking some of these hard questions. For instance, why should we pass this year's budget if the teachers and medical workers' salaries are not increased? Why? Shouldn't we agree that unless we get 50% of the teachers and medical workers' salaries increased, we do not pass that budget? Shouldn't we also ask ourselves some of the hard questions? Why, for instance, should we travel business class? Can you imagine a ticket that costs about $2,000, about 5 million shillings? Business class is almost 15 million shillings. That's what we travel. Why? For your information, you board on the same plane at the same time, you sit at the same time, you arrive at the same time. In fact, on some planes you even use the same toilets. Yes. And of course, yes, somebody saying the back lands before the front. So, and then you part with that. Why should we have 390 billion, for heaven's sake, spent on medical foreign treatment for government workers? Why? That could have built how many hospitals for the last 10 years? So some of these questions are quite hard, but we must ask them. We must ask them when the president comes to parliament, when we read the budget. Let's ask these hard questions. These people, we are elected by the people. In more or less we are custodians. Now what happens is that when we get office, some of us become ministers, and the ministers now cease to live the ordinary life, which is okay, but they forget that they actually Ugandans, and then they only remember when they are sacked. In fact, if I could reach President Museveni, I would sack every minister maybe every month, and then they would get back their senses, then they work better. But then at times, I keep wondering whether he also knows all of these challenges. So we have to ask the hard questions. Where are we going as a country? We can get better, but we must keep on asking our leaders to deliver us. If they don't, just like you have a private company. If you have a company, and we are shareholders, and I believe we are all shareholders in Uganda, if the directors cannot direct it well, including the managing director, fire them. We shall fire whoever doesn't deliver our services.
Okay, in the interest of time and also for an orderly arrangement of these questions, please, if you're near a microphone and you can walk up to it, you just have to give me a cue and I'll give you permission to move to the microphone. But before I go any further, please allow me to hand this microphone to the Bishop. His hand has been up for quite a while.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the presenters. I would like to plead that you make a connection for us with political leadership. It seems to me you are shy to admit that. Make the connection for us. You've quoted for us Professor Nwagaba, Korea. You've quoted for us statistics related to Ghana, Rwanda. Progress that has been made. What went wrong with us? And it seems to me we need to hit it hard on the nail. What has failed this country is political leadership. I think you need to be very honest, and I think you need to realize that what we have is not an economic problem. What we have is not a problem of corruption. What we actually have is a problem in our political leadership. I can illustrate, but I won't trouble you too hard. Our dear friend talked about support for entrepreneurs. We have one entrepreneur in this country. His name, Hassan Basajabarawa. How much money has he received? From who? Who authorized that money? It is our president. Isn't that true? Does anybody deny that? Are we telling stories? So let's go further and check. You just said, Mr. Ochichi, that we actually don't have old money in our economy. We don't have people who have a track record. We don't have them at all. The wealthy people we have today are people who made their money in this regime. But let's wait. So I go back to my friend about private sector-led economy. Do we really have a private sector? You know the thing that amazes me in this country? A minister sits in cabinet and they know a project called Chogam is coming. And immediately they create companies and they give them to their daughters and their sons to own them. And suddenly all the projects of Chogam, so do we really have a private sector? So this notion of private sector-led economy is a good idea on the economics books, but it doesn't work here in Uganda. Why? The problem is political leadership. You check. Let's go back to tax waivers, my friend from the tax. Who actually is receiving the biggest tax waivers? He advised us not to use tax holiday. Is tax waiver, is that all right? Is that the word to use? Tax waivers. Incentives. Who actually is receiving the tax waivers, the tax incentives? It's the same political leaders. And frankly, let's be very honest, our president did very well in the earlier years. But it seems to me, as time goes by, this thing gets to be too much. Chava too much, as my friend said.
Thank you very much.
Let me finish here, because I want to conclude here and say that this plea to say to the chief, the fountain of honor, President Museveni, to finish well now, is good for the economy. It is good for the country. Corruption is a problem, not because corruption is a problem. It is leadership gone wrong. Let's work on it. This is why, please, make the connection boldly with political leadership. That's what has gone wrong here. Thank you.
Bishop, I wasn't interrupting your speech. I only wanted to inform our viewers on NTV that we are signing out, but we're still continuing with the live broadcast on 93 KFM. I would like to thank our panelists once again. And in no particular order, we're still here with you. And I'm very excited by the mere fact that we're still with us for the extension of the broadcast. Thank you so much. Very quickly.
This is NTV.
Doing business and is doing well, put his hand up. No one. No one is doing well. Is it a question of us being bad businessmen or doing something wrong or doing things in a wrong economy? I have two questions. One is urgent, and that is the so-called norm of inflation. Bank of Uganda is using a textbook problem, inflation, which by basic understanding is too much money chasing too few goods. However, go down market, ask businessmen how much stock they have stuck. Without people
buying. Then it goes on to use the textbook solution, raising back rates, stop lending, try to squeeze that money from anyone that borrowed. What we are doing now has filtered through to URA because they don't have revenue. Simple businesses are collapsing. If you think this year is bad, next year we'll tell its story. Businesses are collapsing. The lifeline of all businesses is liquidity. Everybody knows most businesses are run on credit. You import, you need money to clear taxes before you sell. You run to the bank. Now the bank is not giving anything. How do you expect those businesses to go on? In the textbook, there is no problem of inflation that is arisen by compensation to Basaj development. In the textbook, there is no money, there is no problem caused by buying choppers. In the textbook, there is no money that goes out on elections.
In the interest of time, your question, please.
Second question.
Just a question, please.
What do we do now? Businessmen are asking, what do they have to do? Is it their mistakes that their businesses are collapsing? If not, what is government going to do for them?
Thank you very much. We, unfortunately, in the interest of time, I have to keep moving back and forth. Who's going to take on that question here? I give it to Mr. Ochichi. Microphone right there. Just a quick reminder, if you have a burning question and you feel it has to be addressed this evening, the smartest way to do it is either you queue up on a microphone after your hand has been picked, or alternatively, you can just scribble down so we can read them express. Just to remind you again, we are live on 93 KFM. This broadcast is live, and I've also been informed that we could be having an extension on NTV. So keep in mind that we're still live. All right.
Let me say this. I associate with the emotions and the submission of our brother. We can all associate with what he's saying. It's not easy to run a business under the current circumstances. And it's not just about Uganda. It's across the globe. Extremely tough. But during tough times, that's when you dig deep into yourself. And once you survive during those tough times, it's at that time that you'll have acquired what will never get away from you. I encourage you, my brother, at some point, let's get in touch and see what we can do as Enterprise Uganda. But let me say this about, Honorable, you said something very good. And I just want to give you an example of Knight Lapogo. She is a resident of Pader. She attended a 5-day hard-hitting business clinic where we took them through what it means to be an adult and what it means to survive on your own. After the 5 days, Lapogo had spent 5,000. She went and started selling a molokoni. I didn't know a molokoni was in Pader as well. She did it. Within a short time, the man had reached 300,000. From 300,000, she moved to okra. From okra, she moved to now start selling that okra to Gulu. From there, it hit 1.5 million. Now she is exporting fish to Southern Sudan. Now, this is September last year. And this is now, which month is this? This is June. We are just about, how many months are those? About 9 months. About 9 months. From 25,000 you talk to Lapogo today, her income has grown to 9 million shillings. She took off from where she was. You talk to her now, she knows that if there's something that can come from government, well and good. If there's not there, every day she wakes up and hammers the road on her own. She had never gone to Ginger to buy fish. Now she goes to Ginger, buys fish, goes to Pader and proceeds to Southern Sudan. Now, at that point, government should come in and just say, how do we make it easier for you in Southern Sudan? What do we now do to make others also to follow your footpath? What you have discovered in Southern Sudan, they need even this. Now, when she called us, said she wants now to move to produce. Now, that is information we all need. When we were in northern Uganda, some people were telling other people in northern Uganda not to sell their produce because famine is coming. Now, that is the archaic way of giving the advice. The message should have been, if now there's more requirement for what you produce, how do you multiply it? So that more chicken can go to Southern Sudan, more produce can go to Southern Sudan, and you also have money in your own pocket. So to come straight to Honorable's question, there is need to twin public interventions with entrepreneurship and mindset changing training programs. And separate this from your typical academic certification exercise. Already, Busitema University has called Enterprise Uganda. We are signing an MOU where all their graduates, before they leave, they must be taken through this 5-day training. We have had the same discussion with Nkosi University. We have had the same discussion with the university at Busitema. So these are the kind of ideas which we never used to have. Now we need to get into this courage and start implementing them. The other one, of course, is promoting business linkages between the large investors and our own SMEs and demanding that to happen. We have a very interesting case in Bukedia called the Bukedia Epuripur Farmers Association. They got our support in September 2009. Today, what do they have? These are 400 farmers. They have got their own store, which they built, 120 million. They have bought their own 2 tractors on their own and they maintain them. They have bought their own equipment for adding value to their own produce. And they are connected with Nile breweries. And Nile breweries with these farmers, they are not doing it out of sympathy. It's a business deal. So at that point, whether with or without government, this is a strong business linkage. So at that point, you are creating mini corporate thinkers, but at the village level. We need to search for ways to tap into the skills and the knowledge of the large corporates in the country so that we get that one to seep down to our own local households. And how can we employ the youth? This question is a question that's so difficult to answer, but all I can say is that the youth need to begin seeing jobs beyond having an address outside home. You can start right at home. You could, if you're an engineer, you could start repairing radios in the neighborhood. Some of our youth were taken to school and 9 million paid using family enterprise of milk. Now, a young person will go back home and does not want to treat milk as a business. Why? It is familiar. It is what mommy has been doing. That's mommy's business. This comes back to mindset. So when you look at how the Asian countries have built their own entrepreneurs, it's simple beginnings, simple beginnings. Iron sharpening iron is one of those things we must borrow from the Bible. Bishop Sack, it is in Proverbs chapter 27:17. It says, just as iron sharpens iron, so should another person begin to sharpen the conscience of another one. So this calls for all of us at the household, at the community level, at the leadership level. All of us have got sins. There are sins at the top leadership, sins at the home level, sins at the individual level of the young person as well. So all this need to be cleansed for us to clean the nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is what we're going to do very quickly before I read the messages that are coming in through our listeners via Facebook. I'll take row by row, column by column, if we're to take the corridors as columns. We'll take one person here to take a microphone, one person here to take the microphone, one over there. And please direct your question to one of our panelists. Direct the question, please. Thank you very much. We started that well. Let me give this side an opportunity. Yes, gentlemen. Okay. Very quickly, address your question. And
thank you very much. I'm actually not addressing a question. My name I'm called Dr. Patrick Wakida. I do research, like Professor Nwagaba. Listening to all the discussions, I picked a lot of stuff. But the majority of the discussions are so theoretical. Theoretical in a sense that they sound like the best theories you can ever hear. I listened to Mr. Ochichi telling people start business from your household. The same stories were talked by one of the late ministers who say that make sure you survive from your home. But for him, he was here in Kampala. And therefore, people could not buy it. Poverty in this Uganda has been misunderstood. As an economist, that's the biggest error of calculation. I've had people tell us We brought poverty from 56 to 25. I, as an economist today, I don't use output indicators. I use the outcome indicators. And many lies that our people have told us is to tell us that I've changed this from this to the other. I want to say that I have changed this person from the level of poverty he was to what I see today. Professor Nwagaba, this is a question to you. When you look at Uganda, you quantify the amount of money that has been invested. Has Uganda moved to the level of investment that has been put in there? That's one question. The last question I want to probably a comment here is when you talk about financial indiscipline, you should have also explained to the public that the two functions, the monetary policy and the fiscal policy, work in hand. The other monetary policy has performed its function. Tax collection in this country is at its maximum almost. I've heard people talk about surpluses. But when it comes to spending, when it comes to prioritizing, that is where we should be asking what happens with the money that has been collected. And Mutevire, the other day, I heard people bashing him. Mutevire, his hands are tied. He has collected the money. He has given the money to my brother here, Moses, to spend. And the money has been badly spent. Therefore, it's not producing more tax. And that's the danger. That's the danger that this country is seated on, that tomorrow we won't be able to tax. We won't have a tax base. You have collected money from me. As a taxpayer, I want to see what is my tax doing. Those are the principles of a good tax. My brother there was talking about tax. A good tax must encourage another tax. It must encourage production. If it's not practical, you have failed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. As you're answering that question, we have another question here queued up. And very quickly, some questions here. Maybe I'll throw these around. This one has come in from, well, I'll do the Facebook ones first. Facebook, Godfrey Nsanga says, what measures should government take to stop foreign investors who are only engaged in retail business alongside poor Ugandans? The other question from Mugula Robert says, you will talk, but when will we walk the talk? Obian Newton says, do you think political sabotage of tax evasion affects Ugandans' tax base? This is Obian Newton. BK Josephine says, what can we do to bring the inflation rate lower than what it is? Please proceed, as these questions will be distributed there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
60 seconds, please.
Thank you. As usual, very brief. My name is James Kashaya. I'm a social researcher. I want to thank the panelists. But sir, when I was attentively listening to these discussants, one issue I think which is disturbing us, which we have failed to identify, is the issue of accountability. Now, people were talking about taxation. By giving examples, I mean figures. Who should account? Because now, there are many areas where the government, and we are yet to know who is that government, tourism, export and imports. I was listening attentively, even some members of parliament saying government, and yet they don't know that parliament is one of the institutions, the mandated institution legally to pass the budget of this country. So if I see a member of parliament blaming a government, and yet is the government, it means as if we don't have scholars in this country. Who should blame who? Who should account to what? Mr. Chairman, I want to challenge members of parliament. Legally, and I will not stop this. You are the people representing us at various levels. You are the people passing billions and billions in parliament. Who can you give us accountability?
questions there. We're going to attend to everyone who has the hand raised right now, but please allow us to take a commercial break so that our panelists can answer some of these questions. Don't forget, we are live on 93 KFM. And for those of you who listen to KFM, this show is going to extend into hot seat, so you're also going to be panelists in the hot seat. Thank you very much. A short break and we're back with your questions.
shampoos a lot. Several mornings she shampoos my locks. Always have my back, she stand true to that. Real type of loving, thank you for that. Yo, run barefoot without no shoes and socks. Cause she keep herself clean, man, I go catch no rush. And she love me for real, man, I feel have no cash. And any little thing and from a splish, she splash. Yo, all this blinging is like you forgot. Use cheddar as the bait, then you recruit the rat. So we listen couple speech of Martin Luther chat. Dennis Brown, Bob Marley and some super cats. Yo, it seem like she live upside the Duke shop. Cause she don't have a scratch, it's only beauty spot. When one duty start is when one duty stop. 1 9 to 5, 1 5 to 12 o'clock. You see me?
This is NTV.
Today on Showcase Uganda, we visit Jinja, the city of hidden gems. On your way to Jinja, nestled within Mabira Forest is Mabira Trading Centre. From time immemorial, travellers traversing the Jinja Road have stopped off here, most times beckoned quite energetically by sellers to enjoy the famed Mabira roasted chicken. Besides just offering weary travellers rest, this meal break also offers the opportunity to mingle with the warm and friendly locals, making the experience both exciting and memorable. Mabira Forest, 54 kilometers from Kampala City, is Uganda's largest rainforest and offers visitors a rare tropical experience. A natural forest walk will give you the chance to appreciate the variety of flora and fauna abundant here. The forest is brought to life by the sprawling monkey species that inhabit the forest. For all nature lovers, this walkthrough is a must-do. "87 kilometers out of Kampala, we finally arrive at Uganda's second largest commercial centre, Jinja, which was established in 1901. Located on the shores of Lake Victoria, Jinja lies near the source of the White Nile River. The city is the chief town of Jinja district and is considered the capital of the Busoga Kingdom. Jinja hosts a population of approximately 106,000 people, the majority being of Bantu origin and are English speaking. The Busoga Kingdom. Located at Bugembe Hill, this is where the Chabazinga, the Katikiro, and the Royal Clan Council sit. The Busoga Kingdom has a long and interesting historical perspective that explains the very nature and bond of the cultural institutions found in Uganda. Although, quite unlike the typical monarchies in Africa, the Busoga did not have central authorities at the advent of the coming of British rule, but she had nevertheless developed small principalities, each with its own hereditary rulers. These principalities were later to be consolidated into her central authority under a king called Isebantu Chabazinga, who ruled the Busoga Kingdom. Dancing and drumming form the very core of the Busoga tradition and culture. Having been the industrial pulse of Uganda since the 1960s, it is common sight to come across some of Uganda's larger and more successful industries right here in Jinja. The industrial landscape has formed the fabric of Jinja's identity and prosperity, which in turn is a huge part of the tourist appeal of Jinja town. One such attraction open to visitors is witnessing the brewing process of a popular brew. When Showcase Uganda returns, we discover Ginger's gems.
This is NTV.
Ginger's natural endowment is probably most visible here at the Bujagali waterfalls. The mighty yet stunningly beautiful Bujagali Falls are located 15 minutes from Ginger Town, some 10 kilometers below Lake Victoria, and a testament of the natural bliss Uganda offers. The luxurious vegetation covering the riverbanks and island, and the startling diversity of bird life, complemented by the multitude of fish, complete the stunning vista of the Omuga Chira, or the White Nile. Be sure to bring along your camera for some memorable pictures.
Every time when the boat didn't flip off.
More than 4,000 miles in length, the Nile River offers thrilling adventures for visitors of all ages and abilities. The Great Waterway has played a monumental role in history, and it traverses an incredible variety of landscapes and a colourful melody of cultures. It has enthralled civilization with its power and mystery, with some of the most powerful and sustained rapids on Earth. Enjoy this adrenaline rush.
And then bring it with you. We've got a big Pelican case that's like this orange one. Definitely not the orange one. There's a big yellow one over by all the gear. You can bring that with you, okay? The only other thing you need to bring with you other than what you're wearing, and I'm going to talk about that in a sec, is any medications. If any of you guys have asthma or anything like that, you need to let your guide know, okay?
Everybody, okay, it's Joe Broggs out here. We're in the Pearl of Africa. Yes, it's Uganda, and you are about to go rafting on the mighty White Nile. Okay, the one-day mighty White Nile. It's one of God's biggest water features. So hang on really tight, it's gonna get wet. Woo!
Satisfaction in me. A little more fun, a little less fun. A little less fun, a little more fun. Close your mouth and open up your heart and baby, satisfy me. Satisfy me, baby.
Whitewater rafting experience right here on the banks of the mighty River Nile. Our crews are upstream right now practicing how to hold on, how to flip. But right here, it's Bujagali Falls Class 4. Big lead into a big kicking wave. You're gonna love this. Check it out.
Today, I used to have one too, maybe I'll come and have a see what looking pretty cool will get you.
Also available is the opportunity to experience the Nile High bungee jump. Touted as being one of the most visually impressive bungee jumps in the world, this experience will get anyone's blood pumping. Kites and fish eagles circle the tower as thrill seekers prepare to plunge 44 meters into the source of the Nile. The Nile High bungee jump has been created using world-leading technology that guarantees a state-of-the-art personalized challenge. Safety and environmental sustainability are of utmost importance, and the site has been constructed to international standards. So why not take the cue and take the plunge? After the break, we visit Ginger's hotels and hangouts.
This is NTV.
Perched atop a cliff overlooking the source of Africa's longest river, we find the starting point for rafting trips and the home for bungee jumping on the Nile. You can pitch a tent here for as little as $2 per night or 3,600 Uganda shillings. Relax in the bunk dormitories or treat yourself to little more comfort in the well-appointed safari tents. The camp boasts a nicely tiled ablution area and a well-stocked bar within roaring distance of the rapids on the Nile. 5 minutes walk from the campsite is this swimming pool. Camp residents can make use of the beautiful pool for a token amount per day, as well as treat themselves to a buffet meal. Great value meals are served daily at the camp. Enjoy the Mongolian dishes or cook up your own feast, whatever tickles your fancy. Like most other developed towns in Uganda, Jinja is also famed for its variety of nightclubs. Sombreros is Ginger's finest discotheque. Coupled with its exquisite fittings and impeccable taste of furnishings, the laid-back music creates the perfect atmosphere to unwind and relax. A special way to wind up an activity-packed day.